then from that, amidst giant pile of the ridiculous, emerges perhaps a deeper truth.
Absolutely.
over a period of decades, and at first that truth is ridiculed, and then it's accepted. That whole the process.
The Earth revolving around the sun.
Yeah, the Earth revolving around the sun, but to me it's interesting because it asks us looking out there with SETI, just looking for alien life, is forcing us to really ask questions about ourselves, about what is life, how special. First of all, what is intelligence? How special is intelligence in the cosmos? And I think it's inspiring and challenging to us as human beings, both on a scientific and engineering level, but also on a philosophical level. I mean, all of those questions are laid before us when you start to think about alien life.
So you interviewed Joe Rogan recently.
Yeah.
And he said something that I thought was really brilliant during the podcast interview. He said that
he's going to love hearing that. But go ahead, sorry.
But yeah. he said that he realized at some point that the turn in his opinion about UFOs happened when he realized how desperately he wanted it to be true. Yeah. This is the human condition. Our pink matter works the same way as everybody's pink matter. And one of the ways that our pink matter works is with this thing, with what's known as a cognitive bias. It's a mental shortcut. Essentially, your brain doesn't want to process through facts over and over again. Instead, it wants to assume certain facts are in place and just jump right to the conclusion. It saves energy. It saves megabytes. So what Joe or Joe Rogan, I feel weird calling him Joe, I don't know him, but what Joe identified on his own.
Mr. Rogan.
What Mr. Rogan identified on his own
yeah,
was his own cognitive loop. And then he immediately grew suspicious of that loop. That is a super powerful tool. That is something that most people never become self-actualized enough to realize, that they have a cognitive loop, let alone questioning their own cognitive loop. So that was, when it came to this topic specifically, that was just something that I thought was really powerful, because you learn to not trust your own mind.
Just for the record, after he drinks one whiskey, all that goes out. I think that was just in that moment in time, like,
a moment of brilliance.
A moment of brilliance, because I think he still is, he's definitely one of the things that inspires me about Joe is how open-minded he is, how curious he is. He refuses to let sort of the conformity and the conventions of any one community, including the scientific community, be a kind of thing that limits his curiosity of asking what if, it's entirely possible. I think that's a beautiful thing, and it actually represents what the best of science is, that childlike curiosity. But so it's good to sort of balance those two things, but then you have to wake up to it like, is there a chance this is true, or do I just really want it to be true?
Right.
And that
the hot girl that talks to you overseas.
Yeah. for a brief moment. There's actually a deeper explanation for it that I'll tell you off the mic that perhaps a lot of people can kind of figure out. Anyway,
just to take it one step further, because I love this stuff. Personally, I love pink matter stuff. In your interview with Jack Barsky, Jack's a good friend of mine, a good dude.
Yeah, incredible person.
Yeah. In your conversation with Jack Barsky, you guys, he started talking to you about how his recruiters were feeding back to him his own beliefs, his own opinions about himself, how smart he was, how good he was, how uniquely qualified he was. That's all pink matter manipulation. Feeding right back to the person what they already think of themselves is a way to get them to invest and trust you faster, because obviously you value them for all the right reasons, because that's how they see themselves. So that loop that the KGB was using with Jack did not wake up to that loop at the time. He woke up to it later. So it's happens to all of us. We're all in a loop. It's just whether it's about oat milk, or whether it's about aliens, or whether it's about, the Democrats trying to take your guns, whatever it is, everybody's in a loop. And we've got to wake up to ask ourselves, just like you said, is it true, or do we just really want it to be true? And until you ask yourself that question, you're just one of the masses trapped in the loop.
Yeah, that's the Nietzsche gaze into the abyss. It's a dangerous thing. That's the path to insanity. Is to ask that question, you want to be doing it carefully, but it's also the place where you can truly discover something fundamental about this world that people don't understand, and then lay the groundwork for progress, scientific, cultural, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
What is one spy trick? This is from a Reddit that I really enjoy. What's one spy trick? And you're full of a million spy tricks. People should follow you. You do an amazing podcast. You're just an amazing person.
Thanks.
What is the one spy trick you would teach everyone that they can use to improve their life instantly? Now, you already mentioned quite a few, but what else could jump to mind?
My go-to answer for this has not really changed much over the last few years. So the most important spy trick to change everything immediately is something called perception versus perspective. We all look at the world through our own perception. My stepdad used to tell me that perception is reality. And I was arguing this with him when I was 14 years old. I told you so, Dad, you're still wrong.
Yeah.
But perception is your interpretation of the world around you, but it's unique only to you. There's no advantage in your perception. That's why so many people find themselves arguing all the time, trying to convince other people of their own perception. The way that you win any argument, the way that you get ahead in your career, the way that you outsell or outrace anybody is when you move off of perception and move into perspective. Perspective is the act or the art of observing the world from outside of yourself, whether that's outside of yourself as like an entity just observing in a third from a different point of view, or even more powerful, you sit in the seat of the person opposite you, and you think to yourself, what is their life like? What do they feel right now? Are they comfortable? Are they uncomfortable? Are they afraid? Are they scared? What's the stressor that they woke up to this morning? What's the stressor that they're going to go to sleep with tonight? When you shift places and get out of your own perception and into someone else's perspective, now you're thinking like them, which is giving you an informational advantage. But you know what they're all doing? Everyone else out there is trapped in their own perception, not thinking about a different perspective. So immediately you have superior information, superior positioning. You have an advantage that they don't have. And if you do that to your boss, it's going to change your career. If you do that to your spouse, it's going to change your marriage. If you do that to your kids, it's going to change your family legacy because nobody else out there is doing it.
It's so interesting how difficult empathy is for people and how powerful it is, especially for like you said, with spouse, like intimacy.
Yeah.
Like stepping outside of yourself and really putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, considering how they see the world. And that's I really enjoy that because how does that exactly lead to connection? I think when you start to understand the way the other person sees the world, you start to enjoy the world through their eyes, and you start to be able to share, in terms of intimacy, share the beauty that they see together because you understand their perspective, and somehow you converge as well. Of course, that allows you to gather information better and all that kind of stuff, and like that allows you to work together better, to share in all different kinds of ways. But for intimacy, that's a really powerful thing. And also for actually, like people you really disagree with, or people on the internet you disagree with, and so on. I find empathy is such a powerful way to resolve any tensions there. Even like people like trolls or all that kind of stuff, I don't deride them. I just kind of put myself in their shoes, and it becomes like an enjoyable camaraderie with that person.
So I want to draw a pretty hard line between perspective and empathy. Because empathy is frankly an overused